You're listening to the Marketing Attractions Podcast. Conversations on how nonprofit attractions are increasing attendance and sharing their missions through marketing. Your hosts are Ryan Dick and Jenny Williams of Attend Media.
Jenny, today we got a spotlight episode. Corey Romberg, he's the Director of Guest Engagement at the Florida Aquarium.
Yeah, really excited about this conversation. One of my favorite things to talk about as a marketer is events at cultural attractions, and Corey is going to talk to us all about events. The Florida Aquarium is doing some really cool things, but it's not just introducing new events, but Corey's really going to dive into how they're bringing storytelling into that guest experience and engagement, how, sight, sound, taste, touch, all these elements, how important they are to planning out an event, he's got some really cool things to share. And I think when you listen to what he talks about, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I get why he's from Disney.
Yeah. I like what they're doing in terms of getting their guest survey and kind of how they're implementing that data point. Why measure it if you're not going to manage it? So I think he brought up some good ideas on how to actually execute on some of the ideas that the guests are trying to tell you.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's get into it. All right, Corey, thanks for making the time to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really excited to be on.
All right, so tell us your journey. How did you get into the cultural attraction space? More specifically, how'd you land at the Florida Aquarium?
Yeah, so my journey's kind of been all over the place, which is really helpful for a job that really is kind of all over the place in terms of the different departments that I oversee and things that I do. But started actually out in the theme park world, working at Disney, worked in attractions there, and then had an opportunity to go into education at a zoo. The Phoenix Zoo in Arizona was my first zoo. From there, spent the better part of the next 5+ years working at various zoos. Came out to Florida, worked at a few zoos here, Busch Gardens in Tampa, Zoo Tampa, Central Florida Zoo, doing all sorts of things from education to public relations, and really, fell in love with the zoo and aquarium world and the cultural attraction space. Had the opportunity then to go back to Disney, first working with the animal side of things, and then kind of more into the attractions and the guest engagement and guest experience side. And then when an opportunity came for this brand new position that was created at Florida Aquarium of Director of Guest Engagement, it really was the perfect fit to kind of take the experience I'd gained in the more theme park attraction guest experience space, along with the experience that I had and the passion I had for zoos and aquariums, and really think about what does guest engagement and entertainment and events and all those things look like in the cultural attraction space? How do we mend the entertainment side with the educational side?
Jenny, he's hired. What a resume.
That's so awesome. So this is a new role at the Florida Aquarium that you've stepped into. Tell us what that day looks like. I mean, and I'm sure that it's bringing in a lot of the history that you've talked about from your past experience as well, too.
Yeah, for sure. It was decided that the aquarium really wanted somebody who could really come in with a strategic and creative lens to think about how do we storytell at the aquarium? How do we use these different elements of events, of our entertainment team, basically everything that the guests might engage with, that those aren't coming for a scheduled education program like a school group. These are just your average families and visitors coming to the aquarium for the day. How are they getting our story? How do we use those kind of storytelling and guest engagement lens to immerse people and to really again, get them to understand what we're doing as the aquarium. And so that kind of brought under other departments that lived in different places before. So our events, the two main teams that are under me are events and entertainment. Entertainment used to live under our education learning team. Events used to live under our marketing team. It was decided to kind of bring them together under one roof and in my department to really think about those two touch points really being the things that we're most able to bring our story to our guests with. And so I have two people under me, our events manager and our entertainment supervisor. And then we also have a team of right now 8 entertainers under our entertainment supervisor.
Thanks for sharing that, Corey. That's awesome. Like they basically created a new department for you to oversee. I like that.
Yeah, the great thing is my day can be so varied. Just, in the typical day, I could go from planning a drone show to working with a group, with live animal training group about maybe a new live animal show where we might do, to planning our holiday event, to doing an audition for a new singer to designing a new character or puppet, really varies. And I love that I get to kind of oversee so much, all within the same overall strategic lens of how do we immerse our guests in storytelling at the aquarium.
All right, so singing auditions on Tuesday, live animal training on Wednesday. All right, got it. Okay, not a bad job. All right, so I'm going to pull a thread you mentioned there. You talked about storytelling. What is that? What does that mean? What is this idea of storytelling? How does that trickle down to actually what you guys are doing inside your four walls?
Yeah, for sure. I'm a big believer that storytelling is the way that people best absorb information, and everyone uses storytelling, whether you're a cultural attraction, a theme park, a movie, a business, everyone needs to tell the story of their organization and get people to want to come and be a part of it. And so, we take that very importantly here. And when it comes to engagement and why does storytelling fall under engagement, and why do we, think a lot of, cultural attractions and think about engagement as what are we telling our guests, and they really think of it more as almost just the words that we share with our guests. But I see engagement, and we really as the aquarium see engagement as more multisensory. It's not just what are we telling them, but what are we showing them? What are they hearing? What are they feeling? What are they seeing throughout? It's really this looking at all different elements, from the music of the aquarium to the theming of the exhibits to what our characters look like and do, and really kind of just, again, this multisensory approach to really immerse our guests in our stories so that they feel that they can connect with our stories in a way that, again, we're thinking of everything. It's not just a matter of what are the messages we're physically sharing with them.
All right, give me an example. You mentioned music. I love music. Give me an example of like how music storytelling works within the Florida Aquarium.
Yeah, so that's something we are doing right now, really kind of taking a much more critical look at curating the soundtrack for the aquarium. And as someone who is a storyteller at heart, really, I think about some of my favorite stories are movies, and the importance of music in a movie to tell the story. I think everyone knows, how if you watch a movie clip, your famous scene from a movie without music, how different that scene feels, or if you play very different music that from what the scene, if you play Jaws with, happy-go-lucky music, how different that would be. And so that really, we're kind of taking that approach for the aquarium, thinking about what is the mood we want to set for each of our exhibit galleries. Is there some sort of placemaking we want to do? If you're supposed to be in the Indo-Pacific waters, how does music tell the story of the cultures of those, Indo-Pacific regions? If you're in the Florida wetlands, what does that sound like? Really kind of thinking about a combination of natural sounds, but also just the musical score that can help set the mood. And whether it's, again, a kind of quirky vibe or a adventure vibe, really, especially out front of the aquarium, we're kind of trying to set the stage. We used to kind of just have just a random collection of pop songs playing, and it really kind of distracted from the story. We want our music to be additive, not distracting. We want it to be able to start setting the stage for the adventure. You're going to have this inspirational adventure, learning about conservation and seeing these animals. So being able to have a musical score that fits that mood of adventure, and just really kind of looking at each place at the aquarium, thinking about that. And again, going back to that structure of a movie, thinking about how a movie typically opens with this big bombastic score. Star Wars, you think about that score that opens with. And so we wanted to really have, again, this really uplifting, bombastic score as you first enter and start your adventure. And then also in the last gallery you would exit through, thinking about, that kind of closing credits music, more, inspirational. Now you're leaving the aquarium. What are you going to go do to make the oceans a better place and the world a better place? How does the music help tell that story? So we're really excited about being able to look at that. And even as we do themed special events for Halloween, for the holidays, how does the music help accentuate that particular story we're telling?
Like the visit, the actual experience that your visitors, your guests are going to go through, you're thinking of it in the lens of a movie, at least on the soundtrack side, right? That's really cool. I think that's a great takeaway for our audience.
Yeah, I think definitely the soundtrack side is one thing, but again, we are lucky in that we are able, being being an aquarium that's indoors mostly, very similar more to a museum versus a zoo or a garden, which is much more outdoors, and it tends to have a lot more kind of choose your own adventure. We really, the way our flow goes, and kind of curate that experience for our guests in terms of how they move and flow through. So it allows us to really kind of have more linear storytelling like you might see in a movie, and really think about that throughout. The music is just one example of that.
Well, what else? I mean, what other elements make up, you mentioned Halloween. Like, do you do themed events, and how do you make it Halloween-y?
Yeah, Halloween is one, that we're trying to really, bring some of that to life. We call it Guppyween, and it's a way to kind of have a fun play on words, but really bring in a younger audience. There's a lot of things in Central Florida for Halloween that are a bit more for teens or adults, and so we like to kind of go on the more kid-friendly side of Halloween. But something we're really excited about is a brand new event that we debuted this year called Yuletides, and it's our coastal holiday celebration. So really, again, in the terms of thinking back into, again, storytelling immersion, in the past, we have always done what was called snow days, and it was this very kind of wintry, fake snow type thing.
And y'all are in Tampa, right? Tampa, Florida?
And we're in Tampa, so yeah, it's all fake snow.
87 degrees in December in Tampa.
Exactly. It's hard to fully immerse in the snow, whereas we thought, what would be authentic to us and our brand? What can we truly immerse our guests in? And that's the coast. We are literally right on the water, on the intercoastal Tampa waters. So that allowed us to think, well, we can share the story of not animals from the North Pole, or the Arctic, but animals that are found in coastlines all around the world, which is what guests can see at our aquarium. We can share these great coastal holiday traditions, from boat parades to, food and beverage that's more on the coastal twist, and really, again, authentically immerse our guests in something that's very different, and hopefully it's a sense of pride. I know, Ryan, you're a native Floridian. We know we have a lot of Floridians, native or non-native, who, to them, Christmas is not snow and pine trees, it's palm trees and the beach and sand. And so let's do sand sculptures. Yeah, for sure. But, we'll have sand sculptures instead of ice sculptures. We have a tree. Our traditional tree in the lobby is not a tree, it's a lighthouse, and that is kind of made to look like a tree. So we're really kind of thinking all throughout about how we can really immerse our guests in something that's authentic to us, but also is different in the marketplace, and will give, again, those Floridians a sense of pride of, this is what the holidays mean to me living in Florida or other coastal environments. But even our visitors who are probably coming from the north and are surrounded by your typical traditional Christmas type things anyway, and see plenty of snow anyway, this is something new for them to experience. If they're coming to Florida anyway, let's give them a Florida Christmas. And that's what we're trying to do with this event. And really trying to, as we go through the event, there's 4 keys that we identified as the 4 keys to a great holiday event, really any event, but especially for the holidays. And that's the decor, the food and beverage, hands-on experiences, and entertainment. And so we really made sure that we hit on all 4 of those things, and that all 4 of those things give a unique vibe and have some sort of coastal or marine life twist that really helps sell our event and differentiate it.
Jenny, he just wrote a creative brief for us here. This is like marketing gold.
This is something that, first of all, I think when we work with clients to plan holiday events, it's like our favorite thing to do, right? Who doesn't love planning the holiday marketing plan? But I love what you talk about, the 4 kind of elements to make this up, because in marketing, it can be so much more than just, hey, we have one overarching event, right? Our message to our audience can be about whether it's that hands-on experience you're talking about, or the food and beverage program, right? These are all the little things that people are looking for to identify that this is a different event, something a little bit more unique, right? Like I can get something different with the Florida Aquarium than I can with maybe something else in the market, right? So I love that you're thinking through planning your events this way. And then I think that's something that can, so easily be pulled through the marketing in terms of how we share it with, potential guests and drive more people in. So that's really cool that you're doing that.
Yeah. I think it goes back to that, what we talked about earlier, that we really see engagement as multisensory. And I think thinking about those 4 elements, the decor is obviously what you see, the food and beverage is what you taste, the hands-on activities is that really tactile, something for people to do, and then entertainment kind of hitting on what you hear from the music side, but even just what you see visually as well.
You guys got shrimp? Doing shrimp?
We do. We've got some shrimp. We've got some. We're doing ceviche, clam chowder. So really kind of trying to think about some of these holiday, our coastal favorites from different coastlines, not just Florida, but New England and all around the world, but kind of taking classic holiday foods and putting a coastal twist on it. So yeah, lots of seafood.
You're listening to the Marketing Attractions Podcast. Conversations on how nonprofit attractions are increasing attendance and sharing their mission through marketing. Your hosts are Ryan Dick and Jenny Williams of Attend Media. Attend Media is a media planning and buying agency specializing in zoos, aquariums, gardens, and museums. For more information, please visit attend.media. Now, back to Ryan and Jenny.
All right, Corey. So let's talk about characters. I know that you guys are working on developing some characters. Just go from there.
Yeah, we have a couple of costume characters or mascots, a turtle and a penguin. We're currently developing a third character, an axolotl, which are very popular right now. So we're very happy to introduce that. We're also trying to bring on some new puppets, and we have live musical performances from our troupe of singers called Aquatunes. We do story time with our characters. So really, again, that's where storytelling really comes to life in its most literal sense, is through our characters and our ability to build empathy for animals, especially in younger audiences, through these characters and through, again, different modes of storytelling that have different levels of interaction, be it the literal oral storytelling through telling stories with a reading from a book, or how our characters share stories, puppets, again, musical storytelling through our live musical performances. And really seeing this as a way, again, younger audiences, we know that they need to have empathy for animals before they're going to care about them, before they're going to grow up to care about these animals and want to make a difference. And that's what we're trying to do with every guest, is try to turn them into conservation heroes. So with our younger guests, it's really what we call critical anthropomorphism. The idea of anthropomorphism, which again is seeing human traits in animals. In the zoo and aquarium world, that can kind of be a bit of an iffy subject, because we don't want to make assumptions about animals and their feelings. We know the animals don't necessarily feel things exactly the same way as humans do, so we try to be careful around that. But I don't think it's a scary word. I think it's a really important word, because we know, and research has showed us, that kids, are more likely to connect with something that looks more human, that they can connect with, that a sea turtle like we have that walks on 2 feet and has a smile and eyelashes, and it's not exactly anatomically correct, but it's something the kids really connect with, and they love this Tango, our sea turtle. And so through building that connection, empathy through our characters that might have more anthropomorphism than we see in the true life animals in the exhibits, that starts to build that connection in these young kids, and they see these characters, and then they want to go learn more about the real animals and grow up to then care about them. Again, axolotls is a big one. A lot of people know about this animal from anthropomorphized versions of this character in cartoons and video games, but then they're so excited to come to the aquarium and see our real axolotls. So that's that kind of connection, empathy that we try to build using that critical anthropomorphism, hard word, and our characters.
Jenny, we're selling fun, right?
Yeah. And Corey, you mentioned that you guys had done some surveys too, and kind of found out really what your audience is saying is they're coming for fun, right? So can you talk a little bit about what you learned through some of those?
Yeah, so we use the Moray group for our surveys, and we get a pretty good response rate, about 5%, which I know is doesn't sound like a lot, but from looking at some other benchmarks, that is a good amount. And we get basically on average about 730 individual survey responses a month. So that gives us a pretty good amount of data to go by. And the great thing about capturing that is we do mostly online sales, advanced ticketing. So we have their email address, and we can then send in those surveys after their visit, and that helps us with that response rate. But really, again, it's about both the qualitative and the quantitative. From a quantitative side, we use Net Promoter Score, and we like to track that and see where we're at with that. But I think for me, especially in my role and what we do in guest engagement, it's really about being a truly consumer-centric organization and practicing adaptive management. So it's about really managing those surveys and not just getting the data just to have it, but really looking at trends in month over month in some of the kind of hard numbers, but also especially in those more qualitative surveys, like the comments, really seeing what are some of the key trends that come up frequently with our guests, or even if it's not a trend, even if it's one particular thing, but it's a really great piece of feedback they have, we really want to make sure we're acting on it and we're being adaptive to that. So I put together, when I started, monthly, we call the guest engagement meetings, and they're interdepartmental, including our, everyone from our marketing to membership to guest services, learning, animal care, all different departments all come together, and we go over those survey results. We identify those key trends, and then we talk together about how are we going to address them? And really, because most of the time the solutions are not just one department, they're interdepartmental. So it's really about making sure that everyone feels ownership of the survey results, that it's not just our business innovation team that directly intakes that data, that owns it. Everyone has ownership of it by making sure we're meeting, we're talking, and we're actually acting upon these trends. Example of that, we see a lot of surveys, we would say that there's not enough seating in the aquarium, or they get to a certain point of the aquarium and they wish there was more seating because it's like halfway through and they realize, oh, I've still got another half the aquarium to go. And that led us to, as we were designing, a new tide pool touch tank area on our second level, which really is kind of the halfway point of the journey. We made sure that we then transform this area to not just a touch tank, but to have an area around that has a food and beverage cart, as well as some benches and tables that can then act as this whole kind of immersive break area with plenty of seating. So where guests can take that break before they continue on the rest of their journey. And that's just one example of the ways we're able to really look at those trends in the surveys and make sure we're listening to our consumers.
Like, why measure if you're not going to manage it, right, Corey? And I like the take that you guys are having it, making it company-wide. Everybody's going to have a stake in something like seating and building out this little food and beverage break area. That totally makes sense. Is this something that kind of is unique to you guys? Like, is that something you've like initiated, or some other organizations are doing this kind of stuff? Or talk to me about like getting guest survey data back and like actually implementing it.
Yeah, I hope it's not unique to us, because I think every organization should be doing something like this. But yeah, certainly I think at this level, this was something that I haven't, in any place I've been in my career, I haven't seen it done at this level that we do at the aquarium, that we really have such a dedication to what it means to be consumer centric, and not just as a buzzword, but that we're actually working on it, that we have these meetings, that people are aware of the surveys. The great thing is, even by the time I get to these meetings and start reading off some of the previous month's surveys, a lot of people have already read them. So it's not just like they're doing it because it's a meeting. A lot of people have the initiative to go through to look at what's being said in that. And again, we put it into our priorities for FY25. We're going to practice adaptive management, and that comes through managing that feedback. So yeah, it's again, something I would highly recommend every organization do, and hopefully we know every organization does it at some point. But again, it's a difference between your commitment to, we're just going to do surveys because we have to, versus we do surveys because it's getting that guest feedback is critical and central to how we run as an organization.
It's like a culture thing. It's kind of mushy to describe, but if everybody's buying into it, now it becomes a thing. It's like you're elevating or prioritizing guest engagement, and more specifically, these guest surveys and these comments to high on the list. Once again, mushy way to describe it, but it's cool that everybody else is reading it and like, okay, coming to the meeting kind of prepared.
Yeah.
All right, Corey. So, we always like to end these podcasts with our famous last question here, but it's, especially from someone like you who's been in the space of working with so many different attractions, but, what is one thing that you think cultural attractions should be doing more of, especially in relation to marketing?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, Ryan, I think you said it earlier, it's selling fun. I think that's what we need to remember, especially I think cultural attractions. There is this sense of, sometimes higher purpose, or we are mission-driven organizations, and that's great to be a mission-driven organization. But sometimes you're not just selling your mission. If you're thinking about marketing to the general public, you might have some people that are very focused and devoted to your mission, probably some of your members, and that's great. But how do you attract new audiences? A lot of the time it's by selling the fun. It's by selling connection and time with family. That's something we see, especially in the zoo and aquarium world. I can speak to, we do lots of surveying, and we have a trends committee that's looking at these trends. And year over year, ever since I've been involved in the industry, the number one reason why people, or surveys are showing us the number one reason why people visit zoos and aquariums is time with family and friends. It's to have fun. It's entertainment. It's not necessarily to see animals. It's not to learn. For some it is, and that tends to happen naturally. Obviously, when you come, you're going to see animals, you're going to learn, but it's not the number one reason why people are coming. So that shouldn't necessarily be the number one thing we're marketing. We really should be marketing what those fun experiences, that connection, and that we're still kind of in this post-pandemic world where we know how much people seek human connection with their family and friends, or with others in general. And so being able to be a place where people can come connect over a common interest they have, whether that's art, gardens, animals, the different things that our cultural attractions may cater to, that's the connection point. But then what are you doing to make it, if all you're doing, at a zoo or aquarium is walking around and seeing animals, if all you're doing in a garden is walking around and seeing plants, if all you're doing in a museum is walking around and seeing statues or art or whatever it might be, that's not really connecting. You're not really, then you could do that on your own. So what are those things that we can do as organizations, and how can we market that to make sure this is a place where I can feel that mission, but we're doing things together, we're escaping into some immersive world, and we're connecting, and we're having fun together as a family or friends.
Yeah, it's a place you want to go with other people, not just by yourselves.
Yeah.
Which is great for driving in more people, right?
For sure.
We did an episode with Tim Morrow from the San Antonio Zoo. And like you, Corey, he has a theme park background. And I'm going to steal, he said it on the podcast, so I think I can steal it, but I think I'm going to give you permission to steal it. I'll talk to Tim about it. But anyway, he talked about his organization as an iceberg. And the part above water is the fun, the family, the events, right? But once we get them through the doors, we're going to show them the rest of the iceberg, which you don't see. And he had a saying, I can't believe you guys do that here. I didn't know you did that here. So get them through the door, then we can educate them, then we can convert them into, believing and supporting our mission. But we got to get them in first. It's that top of that iceberg of what people are going to see.
Yeah, definitely. And we see that a lot as well. Is why we look at things like we're really kind of in the event space. We really made sure as we were planning this Yuletides event, are there going to be things from the food and beverage, the decor that we can really market to adults, to those, it's a big market of young adults that don't have kids. We know we do a great job of attracting those families with kids or grandparents taking their kids, but how do we attract those college students looking for something fun to do, on a weekend, or just, again, those young adults who in that transition period before they start families, or maybe who are never going to start families. We want all those audiences. And so thinking about what can we do with adult only events after hours, maybe something, a date night around Valentine's Day, or bringing in some chefs to really create a really unique food and beverage experience. We do a charcuterie event around Shark Day that's all about building your own charcuterie board. So kind of hopefully brings in the foodies, and then surprise, we're going to teach you about sharks. So yeah, it's all about bringing in those audiences. Again, not necessarily using the animals to bring them in. If we can use the food and beverage, or a drone show is another thing. That's why we're talking about that. What can we do potentially in just something that will bring out anyone and then surprise them and be able to then show them all the cool things we're doing for conservation and how amazing our animals are, and then get them to be more connected to the cultural part, more connected to our mission after we bring them in for that fun or that thing that really attracts them. And again, I'm glad you brought up, again, Tim having that theme park background that you interviewed, myself having the theme park background, really, because I've been in both these worlds, I can tell you that there's not a big difference in a Disney, a Universal, a theme park versus a zoo, aquarium, museum. We're all trying to sell fun. We're all trying to sell connection with family and friends. We're all trying to immerse people in some sort of theme. And I think we can all learn from each other. That's why it's great there are organizations out there like IAPA who really bring together the theme park world and the zoo and aquarium and museum and cultural space, because that idea of just being an attraction, of being a place where families and friends can have fun together, can cross over, and we can market very similar ways to a theme park as a cultural attraction.
Awesome. Corey, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Marketing Attractions Podcast. If you have a suggestion for a topic or would like to be a guest on the show, please visit our website at marketingattractionspodcast.com.